The arena had not been summoned in 1,000 cycles. It was a relic from a blood-soaked past that the galaxy pretended to have outgrown, until Earth arrived. The council chambers buzzed with disdain the day the humans refused to kneel before the high thrones. Protocol dictated subservience. Earth offered a nod instead. An acknowledgement, not submission. For species bred on legacy and entitlement, this was unforgivable. The tribunal met in secret. Earth had been too unpredictable, too defiant. An example was needed. A challenge was issued under ancient code, trial by arena. It was symbolic, ceremonial even, as most civilizations had not accepted it in centuries. Earth accepted without pause. The galactic response was confusion, followed by laughter. No one accepted the arena anymore, not unless they had centuries of martial breeding or hyper-evolved death forms. Earth had none of that, or so it was believed. Their soldiers still bled. Their ships had armor plating. Their biology was fragile, their tech reverse-engineered from older races. But their pride? Intact. Unshakable. The Council broadcasted the official challenge. Billions watched the live feed expecting silence, or a plea for negotiation. Instead, the human delegate leaned forward, adjusted the mic, and delivered a single sentence. "We will send our champion. He will arrive alone." That was all. No bravado. No threats. Just confirmation. Alone. The word echoed in forums, news feeds, strategy halls. Some thought it mistranslation. Alone? No escort? No genetic augments? No engineered battlekin? No support? A single man against champions who had shattered moons? Speculations turned toxic. Theories emerged. Some believed Earth had misunderstood the scale of the challenge. Others said it was a trap. Perhaps their champion carried a doomsday device. But Earth remained silent. Not one further word, as if they had already moved on. Their comms closed. Their systems dark. Just one confirmation logged in the central registry: Earth. Participating. Champion en route. The galactic core stirred with anticipation. The arena, dormant for centuries, was reignited. Its sentient walls awoke. The blood memory of millennia vibrated through the structure. Species with vendettas, gladiators with pride, creatures bred only to kill, all prepared for the show. Victory meant prestige, alliance, and dominance. Defeating Earth's lone representative would demote them to galactic irrelevance. Some sharpened their blades. Others reviewed known human physiology, laughing at the frailty. Oxygen dependence, low muscle density, poor night vision, emotional instability. A species barely above prey. But something unsettled even the most confident champions. It wasn't Earth's strength. It was their calm. The galaxy had seen screaming warriors, roaring beasts, armies driven by hate. But silence? That was rare. That was unnatural. Even the most battle-hardened strategists couldn't find a motive behind Earth's decision. What nation sends a single fighter without armor or backup unless they're desperate, or absolutely sure? A week before the arena match, a sealed diplomatic file surfaced across military channels, leaked from the inner chamber of a now-dissolved council faction. It contained a 3-second clip from an Earth archive, a human soldier in the middle of a desert storm, bleeding, kneeling beside a comrade's body, surrounded. His breath was slow. His eyes steady. In the next frame, 5 armored enemies were down, and the human was gone. There was no sound, no transition. Just death and absence. The timestamp verified it was real. The galaxy watched it over and over. Frame by frame. They couldn't understand what they saw. Or how. Questions spread. Who exactly was Earth sending? No name had been given. No record found. The champion's profile was sealed under Earth's own classification system, no access permitted. Species who attempted to hack Earth's network failed. One warlord's AI even reversed its own command code trying to bypass human encryption and collapsed into digital suicide. The day of departure arrived. A single pod left Earth's orbit. No insignia, no escorts, just coordinates set directly for the arena. The vessel was unarmed. Basic propulsion. No defense grid. As it traveled, Galactic feeds lit up with commentary. Memes. Mockery. The phrase, Earth's ghost ship, trended for 3 days. Until it arrived. A skin-verified one biological life form on board. Heart rate normal. No emotional spikes. No augment readings. The champion did not request medical check, briefing, or supplies. He submitted a single document upon entry, a handwritten clause citing his right to face all rounds without rotation. The council reviewed it. It was legitimate. An unease fell over the arena. This wasn't desperation. It was preparation. Whoever this human was, he believed victory wasn't just possible, it was guaranteed. Not one official from Earth accompanied him. No farewell, no crowd. He stepped into the galaxy's oldest blood pit as if entering a familiar room. The silence deepened. The weight of that silence was worse than any battle roar. The galaxy had expected a wild dog. What they got was a man who brought no weapon, because he believed he wouldn't need one. The arena's gates opened before him, ancient mechanisms groaning as metal parted like stone under pressure. Spectators from thousands of species filled the viewing layers, each section color-coded by empire, union, or dominion. They leaned forward, eager to see the creature Earth had dared to call a champion. He entered alone. No herald. No armor. No dramatic flair. His steps were silent, measured, neither hesitant nor arrogant. The structure beneath his boots had witnessed the blood of monsters, legends, conquerors. It felt nothing for him. Yet he walked like he'd been there before. In the control towers, analysts scanned every centimeter of him. Pulse steady. Breathing unremarkable. Weapons none. Armor, civilian-grade polymers. No AI uplinks, no psionic inhibitors, no external enhancements. Statistically, he shouldn't last 60 seconds against what waited inside. The first challengers prepared in waiting chambers. Hulking creatures bred for pain tolerance. Their body temperatures had been elevated, aggression hormones triggered. They were fed combat pheromones and given previews of human vulnerability charts. A strategy was built on humiliation, ending Earth's pride in the opening strike. But even among the warriors, curiosity simmered. No champion came without an entourage. Even suicidal species sent poets to document their last moments. This human had brought nothing. Not even a farewell message. Some mistook it for madness. A few began to suspect design. The crowd watched the human move through the arena's inner ring. He paused at the stone markers engraved with past champions' names in 100 scripts. His hand brushed the last one, dated 500 years prior. A human gesture. A moment of stillness. Not reverence. Acknowledgement. As he reached the center, arena sensors activated defense zones, energy barriers, and atmospheric calibrators. It adjusted gravity for fairness. Hydration systems pulsed beneath the floor. An alien voice echoed from all directions, announcing commencement of the first round. Languages overlapped, translated instantly into neural implants of all attendees. He said nothing. Not a glance upward. His eyes remained forward, calm, not searching. That stillness unnerved them more than rage would have. Then came his first opponent, a creature armored in calcified bone, its upper arms larger than most human torsos. Its roar shattered glass in the distant tears. Crowd cheers rose like a wave, ready for spectacle. But the human didn't flinch. His eyes tracked movement, not intimidation. He shifted weight, not out of fear, but calculation. The monster charged. Claws aimed at vitals. But at the last instant, the human rotated sideways, planted his heel, and redirected the impact with minimal motion. The attacker's momentum carried it into the wall. Bones cracked. The arena quieted for the first time. The human stood over the fallen creature, not triumphant, not angry, indifferent. No kill. He stepped back, allowing officials to drag the opponent off. The crowd didn't know how to process it. Mercy wasn't common here. But this wasn't mercy. It was control. Another round began immediately. A telepath entered, known for inducing seizures in weaker minds. The human's vitals showed no reaction. The telepath pressed harder, scanning surface thoughts. What it found was noise, disjointed language fragments, old Earth nursery rhymes, code patterns, useless trivia, loops designed to confuse. The invader stumbled, disoriented by the human's mental clutter. Then his own ability turned on him, overwhelmed by the feedback. He collapsed screaming. Still, the human didn't strike. He waited until medics arrived. The arena's tone shifted. Analysts reevaluated. This was not improvisation, it was orchestration. These weren't reactions, they were rehearsed. The human was mapping variables, predicting outcomes, treating the battlefield like an algorithm. Whispers filled the high tiers. Ambassadors of warlike species leaned forward. Council members reviewed the old transmission again. He will arrive alone. Not, he will fight alone. He had arrived as a message, not a man. Between matches, he rested cross-legged on the arena floor, drinking only water, eyes closed. No interaction. No demand for rest or weapons. Officials tried questioning him. He gave only one answer. I'm listening. One warrior from the Mavari Blades, known for ritual killings and precision duels, approached out of turn, demanding an unofficial challenge. The human accepted. The match lasted 11 seconds. The human never struck. He redirected 3 attacks, used the enemy's momentum to disarm him, and stopped with a boot on the warrior's throat. Still no kill. Still that same unsettling calm. The crowd no longer cheered. They watched. Studied. Doubted their own expectations. He was rewriting the rules, not by disobedience, but by flawless execution. Every move had a reason. Every breath a rhythm. By the end of the second cycle, something changed in the observers. The question was no longer if the human would win, but how much he already knew. The third cycle began with tension heavy in the air. The crowd had stopped mocking. Jokes died on tongues. What once felt like entertainment now felt like study. The arena's purpose had shifted. Spectators weren't watching a human lose, they were watching how he won. Every opponent sent after him had been tailored for overwhelming force, specific advantages, or psychological manipulation. None had succeeded. But the overseers wouldn't stop. This time, they sent in a creature built in the depths of a neutron forge, an artificial hybrid of molten biology and reinforced alloy. It bled plasma. It inhaled radiation. It was engineered for a singular task, annihilation through endurance. Nothing organic had ever lasted more than a minute against it. Its internal heat alone melted blades. The human stood, unarmed, and stepped into its circle. It roared. The human blinked once, analyzing the sound pattern. The creature lunged, swinging with molten claws. The heat distorted air. The floor beneath it cracked. The human didn't retreat, he moved laterally, never giving ground, forcing it to pivot, to chase, to expend energy. The crowd watched his rhythm. He wasn't fighting. He was conditioning it. After 6 minutes, the creature slowed. Its strikes lost accuracy. Its internal coolant cycle was overcompensating. The human had used terrain, precise movement, and reaction timing to force it into overheating itself. Not a single punch thrown. When it stumbled, the human stepped in, placing one hand behind its cranial plate and another on its spinal hinge. With a sudden shift in balance, he collapsed the hybrid into the ground. Sparks flew. Cooling fluid hissed into the sand. Still no final blow. The arena medics dragged the hybrid away. It wasn't about mercy. It was methodical dismantling. The audience began to understand. He didn't win with force. He rewrote engagements. He broke assumptions. Next came the triad round, 3 challengers, coordinated. A telekinetic, a cloaked rogue, and a brute-class titan. They had trained for weeks specifically to fight him. The plan was precise: overwhelm his senses, flank his blind side, and crush him with mass. It failed in 24 seconds. The cloaked rogue never reached him. The moment it vanished, the human threw dust from the arena floor into the air. The particles caught motion. His foot found the rogue's knee mid-sprint. One step and it collapsed. Before the telekinetic could pin him, the human dove low used the brute's forward momentum as cover, and forced the telekinetic into firing prematurely, striking his own ally. The human redirected the brute's swing, causing the two remaining enemies to collide. Again, no kill. 3 unconscious bodies lay before him. His heartbeat never spiked. Those watching didn't cheer. They listened. Listened to the silence between moves, the spaces where others would have panicked. The champion wasn't simply reacting. He was 10 steps ahead at all times. Entire civilizations watched their most elite fall apart because they misunderstood one thing: humans didn't just fight. They adapted in real time. Speculation spread. Analysts pulled footage from old Earth wars, tactical records, psychological warfare, misinformation campaigns. Human victories never followed patterns. They didn't win through power, but by breaking the opponent's will to continue. The arena was starting to reflect that pattern. Each round wasn't just a defeat, it was a lesson. Between rounds, diplomatic channels lit up. Species that once voted to strip Earth of Council recognition began reassessing their positions. The champion's presence alone had shifted political alignment. Even more curious, he hadn't spoken since the beginning. Not a declaration. Not a demand. That silence had evolved into something more potent than rhetoric. The arena had hosted war chants, blood oaths, last words. This man gave it nothing. His refusal to explain left observers with a single option: interpretation. In his 4th match of the day, they sent a psychic infiltrator. Not a fighter, but a specialist in trauma induction. Designed to extract weakness. It linked minds with the human. What it found, it couldn't handle. The human's mind wasn't ordered. It was chaos refined into focus. Memory fragments of burning cities, laughter in trenches, snow melting on battlefield graves. The infiltrator reeled, bombarded with layers of paradox, compassion wrapped in violence, loss balanced by resilience, pain infused with meaning. It disconnected, screaming, overwhelmed not by fear, but by depth. The champion stood as it collapsed, unmoved. That round ended with no contact. No species had ever turned every match into a psychological reversal. The arena, once a symbol of dominance, had become a mirror, and the galaxy didn't like what it saw in its reflection. At the end of the 3rd cycle, one thing was clear. Earth hadn't sent its strongest. They had sent their clearest message. Victory was no longer about surviving. It was about understanding who had already won. The overseers halted the next round. For the first time in the arena's restored cycle, they called a pause. Not for his sake, but for theirs. Patterns were breaking. Protocols unraveling. The human had moved through each challenge without waste, without boast, without deviation. And still, they had no name. No origin file. Nothing but a designation, CH001. Even that was Earth's own input. Classification, civilian asset. Rumors swirled. Was he a weapon in disguise? A relic from Earth's darker past? A manufactured myth made real? They searched again. No genome anomalies. No cybernetic implants. No evidence of artificial enhancement. He was just a man. Flesh and thought. That was the part that disturbed them most. Several Council species privately contacted Earth, offering to resolve the conflict diplomatically if the champion would withdraw. Not surrender, just step out, claim symbolic victory, and preserve galactic face. Earth's reply was only 3 words long. He's not done. The Council debated. Was Earth refusing to stop the match? Or was the champion simply beyond their control? Back in the arena, he stood alone. Still no words. Eyes always forward, shoulders relaxed. There was no hunger in him. Not for victory. Not for recognition. Just precision. He treated the arena as if it were routine. As if conflict was not an exception but a default setting. The next contender refused to enter. A former victor from a hypergravity world declined on moral grounds. "I fight to prove strength," it said. "He fights to prove something else. I don't want to find out what." That abstention sent waves across the council seats. Refusing the arena was cultural disgrace. But the tide had shifted. It was no longer about strength. It was about understanding what Earth had unleashed. It was then that one of the tribunal members ordered a classified psychological analysis based on available footage and behavior logs. The profile stunned them. The champion's movements, breathing control, pain tolerance, and environmental reading speed pointed to a life forged through pressure, civil collapse, resource scarcity, asymmetric warfare, ideological conflict. His baseline behavior didn't resemble trained soldiers. It resembled survivors. Not elite. Not engineered. But cultivated through relentless experience. A survivor with no attachments is dangerous. But one who carries memory, one who fights without hate, kills without thrill, and moves without noise, that is something altogether different. Finally, after silence, he spoke. It wasn't to the arena. It wasn't even in response to a question. It was to himself. "They don't know what we had to become just to stand." The sentence sent shockwaves through the broadcast. It was the first hint of his origin. Not his home or unit, but what made him. Not genetics. Not invention. Evolution through necessity. The next round began. A species with an external neural cluster attempted psychological overload through direct auditory assault. Pulse tones calibrated to fracture weaker minds. The champion stood still, eyes closed. His pulse slowed. The tones intensified. He began humming. Counter-harmonics. His body adjusted, matching the rhythm. The neural attack collapsed. The attacker fell, clutching its own sensory processors, unable to withstand the feedback loop. Again, no violence. Backstage, competitors reviewed footage with dread. He wasn't outperforming them in strength or skill. He was dismantling the concept of combat itself. The idea that power equaled victory was falling apart. The arena, once a crucible for glory, had become his chessboard. The champion sat cross-legged afterward, staring at the energy walls. Not in reflection, but in still preparation. One council observer remarked, "He fights like history moves, inevitable, quiet, and irreversible." News feeds lit up with the phrase. Viewers worldwide stopped seeing him as a participant. He had become narrative. A metaphor. A message. Governments asked themselves, if Earth produced this kind of fighter without genetic tampering, without augmentation, what else did they produce? What systems had made him? The truth was simple. Earth didn't build weapons. It built minds sharpened by contradiction. Hope under siege. Compassion during collapse. Discipline forged in failure. The champion was not the best human. He was simply one who had refused to break, and learn how to bend the world instead. He stood because that's all his kind had ever known. Not domination. Endurance. Not supremacy. Clarity. Not chaos. Calculated will. And now the galaxy watched with growing unease, not because of what he was doing, but because he hadn't revealed why. Not yet. The final round was announced without ceremony. No horns. No fanfare. Just a name, Veltherax, undefeated champion of the old cycle, reawakened by decree. A being designed for war and nothing else, augmented mind, adaptive biology, regenerative structure, and centuries of combat experience compressed into a body that never aged. It had never been challenged. Until now. When it stepped into the arena, the entire place fell into stillness. Not out of reverence, but out of fear. Veltherax didn't boast. It didn't gesture. It simply looked at the human with curiosity, like a predator uncertain of its prey. For the first time since the matches began, the champion moved with intention, his posture adjusted. No longer neutral. Now ready. They stood meters apart. No introductions. No acknowledgement. Just two beings shaped by entirely different philosophies. One was crafted for perfection. The other forged by imperfection until it became purpose. Veltherax struck first, faster than any previous opponent. The ground ruptured beneath the force. The human evaded, not by reacting, but by being absent from the strike zone before the attack began. Not instinct. Prediction. The rhythm of the battle began instantly. No warm-up. No probing. The creature shifted tactics. Blades extended from forearms, electrified tendrils snapped forward. The human redirected, using the arena walls for leverage, forcing the creature to adjust its angle of attack again and again. Each movement drained microscopic energy, forced recalibration. 10 minutes in, Veltherax adapted. Its internal processors mapped the champion's movements. Prediction algorithms aligned. Traps were laid. Terrain shifted. The human began to bleed, minor cuts, a fractured rib. But his breathing remained even. He welcomed the pain. He measured it. And then he stopped moving. Veltherax paused, confused. The human stood in open space, arms at his side, eyes locked forward. A challenge? No. A question. The creature lunged. And that was the moment the rhythm changed. The human stepped into the strike, not away. His body twisted at the last instant, catching Veltherax's momentum and converting it into collapse. The creature slammed into the ground, systems shocked by redirected inertia. The human didn't attack again. He just waited. Veltherax rose, faster this time, smarter. It split its limbs, created duplicates through light-based projections. 10 versions surrounded him. The champion closed his eyes. One breath. He moved through them, finding the true form by weight displacement, auditory signature, and heat differentials. 3 seconds. Illusions gone. Another slash. Dodged. Counter-pressure on a joint. Dislocation. Minimal force, maximum consequence. Now the creature was learning something new, limits. Pain it had never felt before. Uncertainty it didn't recognize. The fight pushed into 20 minutes. No other match had lasted longer than 10. Officials stopped tracking damage. They began tracking movement models, trying to understand how a baseline human was rewriting combat in real time. But he wasn't just fighting. He was extracting data. Every failed strike from the opponent gave him insight. Every injury became instruction. Then he spoke again, voice low, clear, direct. This isn't a fight. Veltherax halted. It's a demonstration. Before the creature could process, the human activated something unnoticed. Microscopic pieces of discarded tech from previous rounds embedded in the arena floor. Over time, while fighting, he had assembled a makeshift neural disruptor. Piece by piece, unnoticed. While under pressure. While bleeding. He triggered it now. A silent burst of directed signal. Not a weapon. A whisper aimed precisely at Veltherax's cortical enhancers. The feedback loop struck like a lightning bolt. The creature's limbs spasmed, balance lost, targeting scrambled. It fell, crashing, struggling to regain control. The human approached slowly. No sword. No blast. Just footsteps. He knelt beside the fallen form, placed a hand on the creature's temple, and said, "You were built to win. I was built to endure. We're not the same." Then he stood, walked away, and left the arena floor without waiting for verdict. The overseers froze. There was no rule for this. Silence consumed the arena. The crowd had no words. They had witnessed something irreversible, not a victory, but a correction. The council stood, not to applaud, but to process. Across the galaxy, recordings of the event spread. Not just the battle, but the calm, the preparation, the final sentence. Earth had sent not a soldier, not a killer, but a message: power isn't in destruction, it's in restraint. The champion never looked back. No interview. No statement. No title claimed. But from that moment on, no species ever challenged Earth the same way again. Not because of fear. Because they finally understood what it meant when Earth said, "He will walk in alone."